I get all my gear from Online Outfitters, and we'll tell you more about them at the end of the video. So you want to see the proper way to set a snare? We're going to show you.
So we're going to snare this whole coyotes are crawling under here, coyotes, bobcats and stuff, and they're trying to access this high fence. So this is a great place to catch a coyote. Obviously this is not big enough for a deer. This is being used by either raccoons or your larger predators like a coyote or a bobcat. And so I like these snares. I buy these already pre-made. The reason I like these, you can make them yourself. I like this lock system on this one. It works really well. They're pre-loaded so that there's actually a little spring there. So when it goes to fire, that there's some memory there, so it'll actually fire that snare real easy. So what happens is when that coyote goes through there, it'll fire and it goes around him. And of course, the coyote doesn't have thumbs, so he can't get out. So the tighter he goes, it just chokes him down. So a lot of people set snares in different ways. This one's got a deer stop, and a lot of guys up north will use them on trails, where deer access them, and they'll put that stop right there so it won't close all the way. So if a deer gets his foot in, it can get out. Obviously, we're not worried about a deer here because this is a crawl under. So I'll put that deer stop up out of the way, and it's just a nut that's on there, and so I'll crimp that down. So you just tie one end off, and I like these longer snares. A lot of guys use a short snare. I like a little longer snare, but I check these at sometimes 60 miles an hour because I have 100 out, you know, and so I don't want to stop at somebody else's snare. So I always do an L. And two, I see a lot of guys do this. They'll hang their flag right there. It'll spook a coyote. Sometimes when that wind's blowing, that thing flopping, he'll just keep on going. He'll just go around it. So I always go off to one side, and I put the L toward my snare. Usually when I walk up to do a snare, I'll look at my hole. I'll make sure I have enough room there, and then I'll just tie that off right there. This has a swivel on it, where if he's thrashing around there, it doesn't twist the cable. It's just keeping it straight so you don't get a good kink in your cable. It's also got what's called a whammy right here. I use that to set my snare in position. So I'll cut me a short piece of wire. And here in this, what I'll do is I'll go up a little bit, and then I'll go this way. And what that does is it keeps that wire from just spinning. If I just went this one without going up, that wire would just spin, but that's my keeper. Okay, so I'm gonna show you kind of an unobstructed view of what I did there in that hole with all that grass. It's kind of hard to see with a camera. So we're gonna imagine there's a hole or a crawl under right here. I'll go up a couple of twists on that wire, and then I'll go over and go a couple of twists, and what that'll do is that'll keep that from spinning on there. And so when I set my snare in the hole, I have my snares built with this, what's called a whammy on there. It's just a piece of plastic. Sometimes they make them with a little steel deal on there, same effect. But I can position that snare exactly where I want it in that hole. And then I'll build my loop just where I want it. You don't want that up here, because if the wind blows a little bit or something hits it, it'll fire real easy, and you'll check your snare and it's like that. So have a little bit of a up to it so gravity doesn't get it and the wind really doesn't get it. But you can adjust with this wire like this. You can adjust that out if your hole is lower or higher. That's all your adjustment there. So you can put that loop exactly where you want it if you leave enough tail in there. And as far as size goes, a lot of guys will say 9 inches, 7 inches, 11 inches. That's kind of a good rule of thumb, 9 inches. And if you've got a big hole, you know, that's really wide, you can take some grass or something to get in there. But I like a loop about that size right there, about 9 inches. So what you do by setting it up off the ground, you get his feet under it and you get his head in it. If you get a loop too big, a lot of times you'll catch them, you know, around the chest or the waist, which is not desirable. You want them around the throat. And bobcat's head's real small, and they're used to forcing themselves through those crawl unders. So if you'll just give them some daylight there, and if you got a bigger hole, just block it a little bit with a stick or something. You know, just something small like that. because he's not going to waste time. He's just going to go right there. Put it in here, in that whammy. We'll hold it right there, and that's about perfect. A lot of guys will set their snares on the ground, and you're catching a lot of coyotes around the waist, or they're just knocking them down. What you want is that snare up off the ground a little bit right there, and I turn that up just a tad, so it doesn't, if you get a lot of wind or something bumps it, if it's leaning forward, the gravity will just make it fire. But get it off the ground an inch or so, and that way his front feet will go under it, and you catch him, and that when he comes up, he's caught. That's it, and that's the proper way to set a snare.
All right, so that's the proper way to set a snare. Make sure and like the video, leave a comment, and follow us on Facebook. We'd like to thank Online Outfitters for providing us with all of our awesome gear that we use in our shows. From ammunition to thermal gear, if we need it, they have it. For more information on Online Outfitters, check out the link below.